our first conversation is a very important one, as it touches on the people's right to vote, your right to vote. Yesterday, we promised to bring you this crucial conversation, so let's give you some background to it. About 3 days after the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, opened its doors for PVC collection nationwide, the Northern Elders Forum dropped a bombshell saying that thousands or possibly even millions of voters are being made to surrender their PVCs for pittance, in most instances not more than 2,000 naira. I mean, that should naturally jolt anyone who is interested in a free, fair and credible election. So let's drill deeper, because this is a very, very crucial conversation. It concerns you, it concerns our nation. And to do that with us, we're joined on the program tonight by Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed, who is the Director of Publicity and Advocacy, Northern Elders Forum. He joins us live from our Abuja studio. Good evening, sir, and thank you for honoring our invite yet again. It's deeply appreciated.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, startling, really, and I imagine that's the case for a lot of Nigerians. But for the benefit of those who may have missed that statement you put out regarding your investigations into reports of people exchanging their PVCs for 2,000 naira, please tell us, what are your findings?
Well, exactly as we said in the statement, we took some time. We've been hearing about these rumors. Then we did some investigation in the last few months, and we made some informal contacts with INEC just to make sure that what we're hearing in towns and villages is true. INEC naturally would not divulge sensitive information to groups like Northern Elders Forum unless they're sure that what we're talking about is credible. But eventually we began to hear about arrests, we began to hear about possible prosecutions. And then INEC itself a few days ago released a statement saying there is a practice of buying PVCs from potential voters. It's occurring on a fairly large scale. We then decided to release our statement, which also captured part of our findings. In the north, which is where we did a lot of this investigation, huge numbers of women especially are being made to part with their PVCs. Some for a little bit of money, like you said, 1,000 naira, 2,000 naira. Others for some money and a promise that they would be processed for some kind of welfare scheme. And it's going on a very large scale. Worrying enough for us to say we need to speak up. But we didn't do that until we heard from INEC some confirmation independent of our own investigations. And we're very worried about it. Because if it is not arrested, potentially a huge number of people, particularly from the north, which is where, again, we did our investigation, are going to be disenfranchised. People would have gone through the rigors of voting, overcome skepticism, overcome hostility. We knew what we went through convincing Northerners to go and register this time. So we succeeded. The North has a majority of voters, and we're looking forward to 2023 when every person, every Nigerian would vote, hopefully for a major change and shift in the political situation of the country. And to have people just sitting at home because somebody had bought their cards, they can't use it, according to INEC. The person who has sold the card can't use it either. It's called voter suppression. We've seen it somewhere else. We know it's practiced in many other countries using different tactics and strategies. But it's a very worrying phenomenon. I have to say it's not just taking place in the north, but a huge part of it is capitalizing on the poverty, particularly of women. And people are being separated from their voters' cards.
Indeed, and that ties to what has been raised severally, the weaponization of poverty. But I mean, we all know how much hassle people went through trying to register for these cards, then eventually getting the cards only to give it up. In your findings, are you able to, pinpoint who is responsible for this? Who is organizing this, exchange of PVC for pittance, for some promise? Do we have an idea who is perpetrating this voter suppression, as you put it?
We were not able to establish a specific partisan bent on this. There are huge numbers of people involved in this. It appears that the targeting is real. They target the most vulnerable, which is women. In the North, more women vote than men. More women have an interest in election activities. And on voting days, a lot more women turn out to vote. And the economy makes them more vulnerable. So it's a targeted, conscious and deliberate effort to reduce each other's support. People look at areas where they are strong and where the opponent is strong, where the opposition is strong, and what they do is they go into places where particularly opposition is strong and they buy off PVCs. If you don't have a PVC, you cannot vote. This is what INEC tells us. The technology does not allow you to vote without your own PVC. If you have somebody else's PVC, you cannot vote either. That's what we understand, and we believe INEC. And so what appears to be going on is that virtually everybody else is involved in this. Because it's been taking place in the last few months secretly, it is now becoming an outrage. You can hear the outrage. We decided to go public. Principally, that statement you referred to was meant to alert people. Under any circumstances, no one should part with their PVC. In the North in particular, we have paid a huge price in the last 7 years under this administration. And to sell your voter's card for 2,000 naira or 1,000 naira, we understand some people would rather part with their card and get 2,000 naira because there's a lot of apathy, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of frustration. People have very low faith that the democratic process will turn around and make their lives more secure, more comfortable economically, give their children hope. We understand all that, but what we're trying to do with that statement is to say this thing is going on, it's not worth it. Don't sell your future for 2,000 naira or 1,000 naira. Hold on and vote credible leadership that may turn the country around. That is the whole point of this. But it is, you can't attribute this practice to one party. We didn't have the evidence to say it's this particular party that is doing it. We've seen a lot of people buying our cards. Difficult to pin who they are doing it for, but the practice is well known. It's called voter suppression. It means disenfranchising a lot of people so that you weaken the opposition.
I mean, I think it's important to state and restate this. INEC has said that without the PVC, or at least even if you were to get someone's PVC, you can't vote with it because there's a bimodal voter accreditation system. So to that extent, it is futile. But clearly, as you said, this is being done. Just to be clear, when you say that it's meant to reduce, the support for others, you are essentially saying this is being perpetrated by politicians and political parties. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. It's been practiced by political parties, politicians, and across the whole spectrum. The practice is just simply find out where opposition is strong, take away as many PVCs from that particular locality, and make sure that there's potential voting numbers are reduced. It's known across the world. Maybe it's relatively new in Nigeria.
Indeed. So you said that you put out that statement to alert people. And I wonder just how maybe people would receive this, because you said, there's a lot of poverty in the land. That is not an excuse. But imagine someone looking at his pocket and thinking, okay, I could earn something for giving out this PVC, and they just rationalize and think, well, it's better to give up your PVC than to die. What sort of messaging then should be going out to people? And from everyone who is responsible, every stakeholder, to be going out to people such that they understand what is at stake. Because as I said, some might value, naturally, their lives more than the PVC.
Well, we're hoping this program, for instance, will be very useful. When we have raised our voices in many fora, in many situations, and we'll continue to do that. Poverty is a terrible thing. We all know that. But in spite of the suffering that the Northerners have gone through in the last 7 years, somebody will be desperate enough to sell their PVC for 1,000 naira or 2,000 naira. It tells you how vulnerable our people are. But we've also raised another issue in that statement where we said, even with the PVC, the federal government has to do a lot of work to reduce the vulnerability of citizens to violence. Huge pockets of populations in the north, in the whole entire north, are likely to be disenfranchised because of insecurity, either because INEC cannot deploy for election purposes, or because people can't move around or come out on voting days freely to vote. And it's a huge, huge problem. It has to be tackled decisively, and it has to be done comprehensively. It's been done before. We've seen it done in 2014 when Jonathan even had to postpone an election to sort of push back the threats to the population. If you look at the southeast, only people who are deeply in self-denial will tell you that we're dealing with a national emergency. You cannot allow IPOB, ESN, or unknown soldiers, or unknown gunmen, or whoever, even if they have no name, their activities are being targeted clearly at preventing people, ordinary citizens who have labored to get PVCs, who want to vote, who want to change the course of the Nigerian nation. They're being prevented from voting because people are just burning up INEC facilities. This is unacceptable, and it should not be an issue between the people of the Southeast and INEC and the government. It's a Nigerian issue. What kidnappers are doing, what bandits are doing in the north, what Boko Haram is doing in the north, is not a northern problem. It's a Nigerian problem. Millions of Nigerians are under threat of not being able to vote, in spite of the fact that they will have PVCs in February next year. They will be willing to vote, but they cannot vote because they will be kept out of the voting process and out of the electoral process and out of deciding the future of this country because insecurity has prevented them. They are hostages of an insecure nation. And that's why we're calling on President Muhammadu Buhari and the government and the governors and politicians. We must do everything to free this country and allow everybody who has registered. We've never had, in the history of this country, we've never had the numbers of Nigerians who have registered. Please, they didn't just register in vain. Even people under territories being captured, being kept under violence. People have their PVCs. Those PVCs must count on the days that people will vote. It doesn't matter who they are or where they are. Southeast, Northeast, South, Northwest, they are Nigerians. They are entitled to be freed to come and vote and decide who will lead Nigeria. If you don't do that, then all the problems that people went through and all the stress and all the problems people have gone through to register and wait and struggle to get PVCs is all in vain. And more importantly, you've kept millions of Nigerians out of the process that should help to decide the future of this country.
Well, Dr. Baba Ahmed, when you made reference to what former President Goodluck Jonathan did then, pushing the election forward just to allow, especially security, to secure the elections, and you've raised some issues which have been a major source of concern: the attacks on INEC's facility and this latest voter suppression by purchasing people's PVCs. Are you suggesting, just to be clear, also that perhaps a postponement might be a possibility for this government to explore in order to maybe nip these issues in the bud and ensure that we have free, fair, and credible and secure elections?
No, I'm not suggesting anything like that. I'm suggesting that if there is the political will, this government can substantially reduce the level of vulnerability to which our people are exposed. They can do it, and they must do it. It is not up to them to decide which Nigerian gets to vote and which Nigerian doesn't get to vote. They have a duty to free the population in the Southeast enough from the stranglehold of IPOB and ESN so that people can come out on the 2 election days and vote. They have to free people from the threats of bandits and kidnappers and hostage takers and Boko Haram in the north and in all parts of the country. It is a duty this government owes this country. They have to do it. And what we need is 2 things: the will and the capacity of the ruling government and the voices of everybody. People must raise their voices. Where are the people who represent the people of the Southeast? Who is speaking out against the violence that is going on? Just before I came on air, I had what happened in the House today. How many elite from the Southeast are raising their voices in support of the rights of the people of the Southeast to participate? Huge numbers of people believe that they should vote. They have a candidate. They think they have a candidate who can be president of this country. And yet insecurity can stop them from voting. If the people who are now keeping people at home decide that, no, you're not coming out on the voting days, who is going to go there and fight and make sure that people come out and vote? In Katsina, in Kaduna State, in Kebbi, in Zamfara, in Sokoto, in virtually the whole North Southwest, there are huge communities that will not be able to come out and vote. INEC cannot deploy in a situation where their personnel and their facilities are insecure and unsafe. So all these things have to be addressed, and we cannot reach February 2013 with the same kind of situation we're dealing with now.
2023,
the House of Representatives is paying as much attention. Yes.
Right. Clearly, there are responsibilities for literally everyone. I mean, we've talked about what the House of Reps is doing. INEC has given its statement, said what they've had 50 attacks in 4 years. But, back to that PVC for pittance. I mean, that's how it's being captioned in some quarters. What role do you see for security agencies to play in this one? Because we've seen time and again, even on election day, you see vote buying taking place in the presence of security officials. And they go, well, our hands are tied, literally, because one, you need proof. You need to take it to court, the whole prosecution. I mean, listen to what the police said about the role of governors as well in freeing some of these suspects. So for this particular one, is there any role for security agencies such that at least, yes, it may have gone on for this long, but we can stop it where it is now?
Well, absolutely. I mean, INEC is helpless. INEC cannot on its own arrest the people involved in this practice. So security agencies need intelligence. If people know this thing is going on, they should tell the police, they should tell the SSS, and they do have a role. They must get, if we know this, and we are just ordinary civilians, if we know this, and people are telling us this, and showing us evidence, and showing us women who have had to part with their cards, and other young people and other adults, then obviously it's security agencies can find out what's going on. And for goodness sake, prosecute people. Let us see people being prosecuted. These are crimes. Under the Electoral Act, it's a crime to interfere in the electoral process. And these voter suppression, vote buying are the same things. You take away somebody's card and give him money, or you go to the polling point and you give somebody money and you tell him, vote this person right there in front of everybody. Those are crimes. People should be arrested. But we want to see arrests, and we believe that the police and the other security agencies need to get involved in this. INEC needs to be supported.
Right.
They cannot do these things on their own.
Well, Doctor, maybe by way of driving home the point even further, if these issues are not resolved, first, the PVC, the voter suppression or PVC sale, the security issues, what kind of election then would we have on our hands come February the 25th if we go into elections the way we're at now? What kind of elections and results would we get?
Well, first of all, across the country, you're going to have huge numbers of people. I cannot say now, but if we allow this practice to go on the way it's going, you're going to have a huge number of people who have gone through the frustrations and the pains of being registered as voters, being disenfranchised. That means those people are out of the process. They've been rendered simply as spectators. So this is the largest number of registered voters ever in the history of this country. And I can't even hazard a guess about how many people will be disenfranchised. Two, the insecurity is likely to keep quite enough, maybe 1 million or 2 million or 5 million, I don't know. But the more they succeed in crippling INEC facilities and services, the more they will get encouraged. The more bandits and kidnappers and sergeants in the Northeast recognize the fact that the state is weak, the more they are likely to say to people, no, you can't go out and vote. So we are likely to have an election that has a large number of people who are being kept out of the process. In areas where people are really eager to vote, and you stop them, you are delegitimizing the leadership that will emerge, because a lot of people will feel they own nothing. But if I vote in an election, I feel I have a stake. I have at least expressed a desire to see who will govern me. So we'll have large numbers of Nigerians who have been rendered useless in this process. So, and we want an election that will be credible. We want an election that will involve everybody who has PVC, and we want an election that will be acceptable and accepted by all Nigerians and politicians, because all Nigerians have participated. Everybody who has a card and who is willing to go and vote has participated in that election. If you keep huge segments of the population out of this, they become indifferent to the outcome of the election. They had no part in it, and we don't want that. We have some worries about what will happen between now and when the elections take place, and what is likely to play out after the elections. But the more people you have who are participating, the more people you have who are voting, the more credible the electoral process is, the more the possibility that the things that we worry us, post-election violence, post-election disputes,
all right,
those things are likely to have less of an impact on the electoral process and the political process.
Okay,
so
few issues to raise.
Of Nigerians out of, yeah.
Right, you can land on that point. I'd like to raise some other issues, please.
I'm saying keeping large numbers of people who are interested in voting, who have labored to get PVCs out either because of insecurity or because somebody has capitalized on their poverty and deprived them of the right to have a stake in times of who is not good for the democratic process. It hasn't been growing and working for the population. And now we are keeping out even more people outside the electoral process. That is not good for Nigeria.
Indeed. I know you're quite active also on social media. I've seen some of your exchanges in the build-up to this election. I mean, your responses to people as well. And I wonder for you, are you rooting for your brother, who is a vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party?
I'm rooting for the best candidate for Nigeria. If Dati and Peter happen to be those people, I will vote for them. Currently, I am part of a process in which the Northern Elders Forum is involved, of allowing as much as possible a level playing field for all candidates. You are aware of the fact that we organized the Kaduna and the Arewa forum, where we provided a level playing field for 5 candidates to come and tell Nigerians what they plan to do if they become president. We've been doing a lot of other things. The North is the only region yet that hasn't adopted a candidate, and it's deliberate. We want Northerners to see the candidates. We want Northerners to assess them. We believe that Northerners are intelligent enough and wise enough to make up their minds. We will encourage a level playing field for all candidates. We would encourage a violence-free electoral election campaign.
Right.
And we welcome all candidates to come and convince us that they are the best, including my younger brother and Peter Obi. They have had access to the North.
Right. Pardon me, we have to run now.
Welcome.
Right, we have to run now, but really, Doctor, is there anything wrong in rooting for your brother? I mean, he's your brother after all, and you always expect and wish the best for him.
Are you giving me an opinion, or you're asking me for my opinion?
No, I'm asking actually, is there anything wrong in rooting for him? I mean, I understand that people have asked you that question time and again.
Absolutely none. Absolutely none. None. Absolutely none. If he's my brother and he's the best, their ticket is the best, I would support them entirely. Like I said, I'm open. I'm open, and I'm looking like most Northerners we encourage. Don't just jump into a decision. We have about 2 months to go. Let's wait and see. Let's assess these candidates, and we hope that there will be enough freedom for them to move around and sell their programs and their vision. And I think that a lot of people are excited about Detti and Peter Obi. And there are other people who want other candidates. The North should be accessible. The North should be free. The North should be a level playing field for everybody. But ultimately, Northerners must participate in full numbers in the process that will determine who becomes the president, who becomes governors, who becomes National Assembly people.
Well, we have to run now, but it's been a pleasure speaking with you. We're speaking with Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed, who is a spokesperson of the Northern Elders Forum. Thank you so much for your time on the program tonight, sir.
Thank you very much.